in addition to sort of the structured, discrete data that normally comes with an HL7 message. And that's where you get things like family history, et cetera, that's not typically codified or it's not consistently codified. And it's also a way of getting at doctor's notes where you can find things like smoking or non-smoking. Those information which are really in text, but also information from lab reports, et cetera. So structured and unstructured data are part of this. If I pause for a half a second, you'd say, well, okay, then there's other information such as metadata associated with DICOM, maybe I could do image analysis, et cetera. And that's an active area of research, by the way, of can we do some image analysis in addition to this? But that, we'll park that off to the future, but as a teaser, there is more going with it. The other piece here I'd like to mention is really sort of a problem that we have independent of whether you have a clinical hub doing operational analytics or not, and that is the maintaining of sort of the patient, the knowledge sources. So we all know and love ICD-9, 10, and those, but there's a lot of other code sets that are available that are out there, and there are some people that, there are some products you can go purchase that help you manage all of those things, but then there's also internal code sets that your system generates that need to get translated from this system to RX norm, et cetera. So one of the things that we've discovered as we've gone into this is that being able to manage this reference data, to do so in a single consistent place, is a very valuable thing that comes along with this solution. So reference data management is a big problem within a hospital environment. Not so much ICD-9-10, but it's in the translations and maintaining all of the transcoding tables that you need to do to run your service bus, et cetera. So that's another piece in there that's part of this solution that we're building, is a way to manage that stuff in a nice, consistent way, publish out transcoding tables if you need, push information into the clinical hub. So again, that's a good part of the solution. And last but not least, and I think this is, I worked with a guy who started and stopped every meeting with the phrase, security has never been more important than now. And security and privacy has to be built into this. That's one of the reasons we use the EMPI technology for managing this, because of the attribute level controls of it, and that's why we've come up with a separation of these data to keep the identifiable information separate from the clinical information. And again, it uses the same role-based access, et cetera, that we know and love from the EMPIs, and then we've also built into this capability the anonymization and data encryption capabilities to keep the clinical side of the game, clinical MDM component of it, available for self-service. So these are kind of the key things to them. And this one here just shows what's the, if you think about, again, getting back to looking for patients, one of the things you do is, within the clinical protocol things, is it boils down to a set of inclusion and exclusion criteria. And when we looked at this and we studied a number of these things, we decided this really is a good way to think about not only searching to match this problem, clinical trials, but it's also a good way to search in general, or at least to start your search. And I think that the key thing to the clinical hub is that this is a good way to start your search, but the similarity is the better way to conduct the search once you get started. So here you've got a situation where you've got some eligibility issue, and then you've got things that you want as part of the inclusion to it, and then you've got things that you absolutely don't want them to have. And so what we've done is that we've sort of we've mirrored that component in our UI. And so this is the UI, a screenshot of the UI that we use for the clinical hub, and you can see it's got two tabs at two tabs at the top to talk about inclusion and exclusion criteria, and then these little twisty drop downs where you can actually start to enter information. So if I twist down the demographics, for example, I have this, and it's used a Mad Lib type approach, a way of entering information that I want. for demographics, family history. And so the two here that we have done are demographic information and a disease condition, cardiomyopathy, that we're looking for. So this is an example of the type of thing you would want to do if you're trying to find some patients for a clinical trial, or perhaps find some other patients that, for other reasons as well. If you're looking for people within the hospital right now that have a certain set of problems, you would run this sort of thing. The problem is when you typically fill all of these things out, you get very rich, and you get the answer that nothing's in there. So the exact search capability is one where you very quickly get, bounce between, I get a million responses, and then I get 0 responses, and then I get, 500,000 responses, and then I get 10. And so the researcher ends up going back and forth with this capability by just sort of modifying the pieces of it. What we've done with the Clinical Hub is to say, let me take those inclusion and exclusion criteria that I had and put that in really as a virtual patient, and then use my similarity to this sort of fictitious patient that I've created, and use my similarity to go find things that are out there. And so this is an example of that, where we have used this, this virtual patient based upon what we typed in before to go search the database and come up with things that are close to it. And I apologize, this is a little hard to read even for me here. But what did you get back then is a list of patients, a score. This is, for those of you who use the EMPI to search, that should be pretty straightforward. And then information about those patients that you can use to select of it. And then also on the top, there's certainly distributions that you can look and see, well, okay, I wanted females, but I got a couple of males out of this, but that was because they matched some of the other criteria very closely.